It doesn't really matter what you're into this week, because we've got some enticing Metroidvanias, a couple exciting brawlers, a downright awesome first-person shooter, and the Switch port of one of the most ambitious games ever made. This is Nindie Nation episode 161. Greetings, citizens! I'm Jeff, and today we're taking a look at 17 brand new indie games hitting the Nintendo Switch through the week ending October 9th. You can find more Nindie Nation on Twitter, come hang out with your fellow citizens on Discord, or join us this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern to check out a couple of the week's new releases during our Nindies Nite stream. And you know, burnout is real, folks, and last week I just needed a break, but I'm back and I'm raring to go. As such, we need to touch on some of the notable games that we missed from last week. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let's kick off episode 161 by taking a look at the 9 notable Nindies that released since episode 160. First up, in a quick rundown of potentially interesting games from last week, is Escapegoat, the 11-year-old puzzle platformer by Magical Time Bean and Adam Sprague Games. For $5, you get 50 single-screen rooms with deceptively clever puzzles to solve that typically have you finding a key to unlock a door. And even though current reviews are hard to find, this is actually quite the gem. If goats, key puzzles, and a healthy dose of Dungeons & Dragons inspiration tickle your fancy, check this one out. As for me, I spent a bit of time with Moonscars over the past week, and let me tell ya, if this grotesquely gorgeous world and preposterously difficult gameplay gets you all hot and bothered, I think you'll find exactly what you're looking for. The combat feels great, and I like the mix of progression between typical RPG fare and the temporary buffs that only last until you die. However, this game was laughably hard. I barely made it past the first checkpoint, and after an hour of playtime, I think I actually ended up weaker than how I started, and I just ain't got time for that. For the right audience, though, it's one to put on your radar. It's developed by Black Mermaid and released by Humble Games for $19.99. And here's an interesting one. In Dwarf Romantic, Tucana Interactive took the premise of SimCity and built it out to be a cozy sim. You're building a city or landscape of sorts by placing randomly generated tiles next to each other. There's no timer, but based on how well the pieces quote-unquote fit together, you can be rewarded with various tasks to help manage building your world. It's a tricky one to explain, but for $13.49, it seems very well suited for laid-back sessions that feel productive and rewarding at the same time. I've also spent some time with Undungeon, which released by Laughing Machine and Tiny Build for $19.99. It's an action RPG with a roguelike flair that follows a bonkers story about multiple dimensions that's all wrapped up in this pretty cool Lovecraftian style. Visually, it's stunning and features combat that is fast and heavily reliant upon dodge rolls and parries. Personally, though, I just couldn't get into it, a big part because of how much lore was just making my head spin. But it has received decent reviews and is a fairly short affair, running for about 6 hours or so. If you want to see it for a few minutes on Nindies Nite this week, let me know and I'll fire it up. From Space, released by Triangle Studios, who previously made It Came From Space and Ate Our Brains and helped out with The Bug Butcher, so we're off to a good start. It's a lighthearted twin-stick shooter that strongly encourages squads to team up online, and while it looks fun, that's really where it loses me. Otherwise, you blow stuff up, you level up your characters, and you move on to the next alien-infested level. It's published by Curve Digital and dropped for $19.99. A lot of those this week. There's two kinds of people in this world, those who love Jupiter's Picross series, and those who have yet to try it. Picross S8 released for $10, and if you've yet to try one, there are a couple of demos available on the eShop from other versions. So give it a shot, because Picross, specifically this series by Jupiter, is outstanding. And you know, if there's one thing the Switch is sorely lacking, it's chilled-out farming or management sims.
He said with rampant sarcasm.
But never fear, because spring-loaded and No More Robots just released Let's Build a Zoo for $16.99. I don't know, guys. It's a zoo simulator, and it's got really good reviews. What more do you people want from me? I don't play these. Stratera Studio is a new team founded in 2020, and their first game, Guns N' Runs, hit the Switch last week by way of Pixel Heart for $9.99. As the name suggests, it's a retro run-and-gun. You've got 8 characters and a ton of levels to run, jump, shoot, and dash your way through, and it looks like a simple, fun time. And finally, after half a year exclusively on Xbox Game Pass, Tunic, the classic Zelda-like, settled down in the nation of Nindie for $29.99. The full isometric action-adventure is here, complete with its shtick where the hints and story are filled out via a video game instruction manual in a language that you can't comprehend. At least at first. Now, I've yet to play this game, but a ton of people who have are putting it at the top of their Game of the Year lists, so it must be pretty good. Unfortunately, it does run a bit slower on the Switch, and it has that smeared Vaseline look for lower resolutions, so I'm gonna recommend playing through this one on other platforms if you can, but if not, hey, now you can take that cute little murderous fox on the go with ya. There's a lot of good stuff here, huh? Anyone play Tunic on the Switch yet? If so, let us know how it is, and don't forget to call out any other games you're considering down in the comments. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the week ahead. These are the 17 new releases hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, October 9th. We don't usually cover free-to-play games, but everything about Guardian Tales is fascinating to me, so we're gonna check it out. As the sole release for Monday, October 3rd, it's a top-down adventure that is largely inspired by Zelda Four Swords Adventures. I love that frickin' game. Pitched as a mostly multiplayer game, it can be played solo and features 4 little characters roaming around a big world, hacking and slashing, working through puzzles, and tackling dungeons together. There's over 50 characters available, everyone gets their own castle to customize, and you can form guilds with other players, all of which I'm guessing are bolstered by microtransactions. After Kong Studios had a limited release in late 2020, the game reached Asian markets last year and became a behemoth, generating over $100 million in revenue and taking Kong Studios from a small operation in Silicon Valley to a billion-dollar valuation thanks to a bunch of investors tempted by this game's enormous success. Frankly, it's a story we don't often see in gaming, let alone indie games outside of maybe Rocket League and Among Us. I'm nervous to see how the free-to-play mechanics are implemented, but since the game looks fun enough and is finally hitting the Switch, I want to keep tabs on it just in case it becomes the next big indie success. On Tuesday, Pendulo Studios and Microids team up to bring a classic Hitchcock thriller to life in Alfred Hitchcock Vertigo for a whopping $40. It's a narrative adventure about a guy who slowly goes crazy after recovering from a car crash, and while it comes from a studio with a long history of games like this, at $40, I'd suggest waiting for reviews before diving in. And then Nape Games, the small team from Spain who somehow releases like 5 games a year, partners with Calaca Studio to release Pharaoh Slug for $5.67. Made to look like it's running on a 2-color PC from the early 80s, it's a single-screen puzzle game about a slug that moves at like 2 frames a second. Speaking of games I'm struggling to find anything interesting about, Ultimate Games is back with 700 Crank Bombs.
I still can't figure out what the hell that company's called.
In Tribe Explorer for $4.99. You run and jump through a cave while avoiding traps, and one of the 3 key features listed in its description is that it has a save feature. So I guess they struggled to find anything interesting to mention too. I guess the eShop is taking Wednesday off because it's time to kick off the big Thursday drop. Now, while Revulo's catalog leaves a bit to be desired with 2 pool games and 1 mini-golf game, the release this week could be a good time. No, it's not a set of instructions for what to do if you get lost while you're in college. Rather, Maze Blaze is an isometric twin-stick shooter that, you guessed it, takes place in a maze. I really like the visual direction here, with the claustrophobic fisheye lens and an abundance of particle effects. It seems to punch above their last couple releases. Usually $9.99, Maze Blaze is currently on sale for $6.99, and if you needed another reason to consider picking it up, know that it includes procedurally generated mazes, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! Regista takes a break from farting out every single Japanese escape game they can find to release, well, something that looks up my alley. Originally released last summer as a mobile game, Cosmo Players definitely looks like a free-to-play mobile game, but for $11 and stripping out the microtransaction stuff, I'm a bit more interested. The translation and the description and trailers are so bad, but the point is clear. This is a by-the-books twin-stick trifecta with a bonkers anime flair. That means you get procedurally generated dungeons, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! And the RPG elements consist of massive skill trees that know just how to trigger my dopamine receptors. The visuals are about as basic as can be, but the gameplay looks like a great fit for something casual to keep your hands busy while watching something else. I am going to ask for a code to try this one out on Nindies Nite, but if you've tried this one out already on mobile, let me know down in the comments. Another game I've already requested for Nindies Nite is Josh Journey Darkness Totems. It's the latest impressive game to come out of Brazil, where apparently great indie development runs in the water, this time coming from Provincia Studio with publishing by Cubite Interactive. The easiest explanation I can give is that it's a 4-player cartoony brawler, kinda like Castle Crashers, but with a bit more character development a la skill trees, and a system that lets you hot swap between playable characters. The hand-drawn artwork looks really nice, and when you throw in the quality cutscenes and variety of environments and characters, the production alone helps justify a $14 asking price. Cubite has always been supportive of Nindie Nation in the past, so it's probably safe to say that we'll be checking this one out on Thursday's stream. Oh, and Trash Sailors is apparently releasing, but we've covered this game 4 times now, and each time it mysteriously vanishes on release day. So while this
Zany multiplayer party game with a gimmick
looks like a fun time, I'll reserve future coverage until Flucky Machine and Tiny Build Games can actually get this one out the door. Thailand-based Aya Games is the latest to release a 2D cyberpunk ninja game, of which we've seen many as of late, but Scigen, the cyborg ninja, does have some great things going for it, and one that leaves me a bit concerned. The main shtick here is that your only ability is dashing through the air to stick to the walls or ceiling. That's how you move, dodge, and attack. Frankly, it seems really kinetic and fun. My holdup here is that all of the trailers are for last year's well-reviewed PC release, and they all lean heavily on the premise that you play the whole game with a mouse. Of course, that begs the question of how it works on the Switch. No Gravity Games publishes Scigen on Thursday for $9.99, so let's keep an eye on reviews. If they manage to keep it just as fun while converting it over to the analog sticks, it's probably worth checking out. And then we get the very first game by both solo developer Polycrunch Games and the first title published by Firestroke Games, as Falling Out falls onto the eShop for $14.99. If it looks a little Spelunky-like, yeah, you're on the right track. While it's entirely playable solo, Falling Out is best experienced with a friend on the couch as you play through these randomly generated 2D temples as a clumsy husband and wife who are trying to escape before they flood. The game is built with humor in mind and includes a bunch of platforming through trap-infested mazes and some light puzzle solving and combat thrown in for good measure. For a first release by both the developer and publisher, it seems like it's going to make a great first impression. Last up for the big Thursday drop is quite a surprise, as it's a game seemingly developed in tandem while they were working on Shredder's Revenge, because Tribute Games releases Wizorb for $4.99. Now, before I tell you that this Legend of Zelda meets Brick Breaker should absolutely be on your radar, let me take a second to explain that I am unequivocally biased and lack all integrity when it comes to Tribute Games, because they were kind enough to make this and send it to me last week to help us celebrate my son's 5th birthday. See, my son has put over 50 hours into Shredder's Revenge, and not only did it single-handedly get him into the Ninja Turtles, of which his birthday party last week was all themed around, it also cemented his love for video games. So I'll be forever grateful for Tribute's wonderful TMNT homage and the team's kindness to help make Parker's birthday even more special. So yeah, Wizorb is actually a remake of the game Tribute made 10 years ago, and it basically asks,
what if Link to the Past, but everything is a game of Breakout?
And it actually answers the question with a fun romp through a wide variety of levels that have you saving the world while building up stats, fulfilling quests, and tackling awesome bosses. I'm all over this game, and frankly, anything else made by Tribute, so if you've got $5 to spare or some gold coins burning a hole in your pocket, consider Wizorb to be Nindie Nation recommended. We've got a few more games before we wrap up the week, but let's first take a quick breather to make sure you don't consider any of these Nindie no-nos. Memory, the original matching game from Ravensburger, is Triva's latest nothing burger. Nerd Games hopes someone will accidentally buy Lawnmower Mortal Race.
Not gonna be any of us.
East Asia Soft publishes whatever this says, but as usual, it amounts to a bunch of provocative furries and some guy's game Dev 101 homework with Super Jagger Bomb, which just outright copies the character art from Mighty Bomb Jack.
Oh, what is up with those eyes?
Megami has not one but two ways to disrespect balls with Billiard Classic 8-Ball Pool and Brick Breaker Ball Shooter. 700 Crank Bombs just keeps cranking them out, and as far as I can tell, Lost Dream Memories is like they looked at Endling and asked,
yeah, but what if you just roamed around aimlessly as a fox?
because that's exactly what it looks like. Weak Fish Studio releases Caddish, which is a single-screen precision piece of SC Ovalix Soft has a mysterious $28 title called Bus Driving Simulator 22, but I can't tell what it's about.
Game National!
Releases a Nindie No-No publisher simulator called Dino Gotchi, because just like they do to the eShop every single week, in this game, you get to watch dinosaurs take a crap on your Switch. But the winner this week is a publisher called Kids Room, because their title,
Clockmaker.
My clock dash vert.
Digital with timer.
straight up looks like artwork made by a serial killer. But never fear, citizens, because we've got 6 more games to cover, and most of them are among my favorites for the week. The first of which might raise some eyebrows because it's hard to imagine, but No Man's Sky is absolutely an indie game. Developed by Hello Games, who started as a team of 5 with Joe Danger, and is now much, much bigger. No doubt you're aware of how this game launched in 2016 when their leader, Sean Murray, had been hyping up way more than he should have been. But now, in 2022, a full 6 years later, No Man's Sky has gone from a mining simulator with infinitely randomized worlds to explore to, I don't know. I guess you could call it like an astronaut life simulator or something, because this game will have you mining, building, flying, fighting, and doing just about any kind of job you could imagine. You can even be a shopkeeper. What started with a limited set of things to do has grown to something that hardly resembles anything else on the market. Personally, I love No Man's Sky. I've found it to be a chill overall experience with a general vibe that says go out and make your own fun. And it was easy to grasp without ever getting overly complicated. You just kind of do what you want to do and ignore the rest. The fact that this game is arriving on the Switch is pretty incredible alone, and I definitely plan to check it out. It won't have the visual fidelity of a game that received quality of life updates for longer than most console generations, but it does look pretty close to the original PS4 launch version. And with a gajillion planets to explore, that's saying something. Plus, I'll never stop loving just how cool it is to seamlessly go from sitting in your ship on the ground to blasting through the atmosphere out into space, finding another planet, and then landing. It's so freaking cool. I love it. It releases for $60, but I bet it'll be half that on Black Friday, so maybe wait a bit if you're gaming on a budget. And you know what? Now that I think about it, No Man's Sky comes locked and loaded with procedurally generated, galaxies, roguelike modes if you choose to dabble in those, and RPG Elements! Who knew? And then Dream Worlds and Untold Tales deliver what I can only describe as video game junk food with Splatter, Zombie-copalypse, How the f do you say that? Splatter, Zombie-calypse,
Zombie-calypse?
It should be Zombieopolis.
Zombie-apocalypse.
Jesus, I'm having a stroke. They released this thing, Splatter something something now for $7.99. Okay? I'm not doing that again. I've recorded enough takes now. Okay. It's a top-down shooter with endless waves of zombies and just about as much gore as they could possibly cram in. There's a story mode as well as a survival mode, and if I hadn't just finished Slaycation Paradise, I'd probably be all over this. I'm a bit concerned about performance because it looks like it gets pretty crazy, but if it pans out alright, this could be a great outlet for some fun, mindless action.
Just for Games
Is back this week with a
Zany multiplayer party game with a gimmick!
and that gimmick is, WarioWare? Seriously, what else would you call this?
Ultra Mega Xtra Party Challenge.
It's just WarioWare, but maybe if the Jackbox team made it or something. $25 is just way too much, but I gotta say, I'm at least a little tempted to check out the demo since the WarioWare that we did get for the Switch was a bit too different to satisfy my craving for 5-second minigames about picking your nose. And you know what I miss? The era of first-person shooters from the late 90s and early aughts. Quake 3 Arena, Unreal Tournament, the stuff that Doom 2016 did such a good job of recapturing. Thankfully, the industry veterans at Bounding Box Software felt the same because the fast-paced gore-fest Proteus emerges from 2 years of early access this Friday, published by Humble Games for $24.99. And there is a lot in this game. As a retro FPS built as a modern game, there's a single-player campaign, tons of multiplayer modes, and a full-blown level creator that seems to have a very active community. If you like heavy metal, tons of explosions, and painting the walls with the brains of demons, Prodeus is gonna be right up your alley and comes complete with a slew of very positive reviews. Seriously, it's got like a 10 out of 10 on Steam. Ah yes, 2022. Year of the Frog, apparently, because there's been no lack of frog-based games. And this week, Ratalaika Games once in on the action. A Frog's Job is $5 and developed by 9 Ratones. It's a puzzle platformer with a time-stopping mechanic that has you explore levels in a cool 2D, 3D voxel aesthetic as you... Wait, is that right? Reap souls for the frog god? That's what you do? Alright then. And last up for the week is a reminder of, both good and bad, just how many Metroidvanias we've received this year. In between Haiku the Robot and Hack, I really wish I had room for Endless Memories, but I think it's gonna go pretty high up on the backlog nonetheless. Developed by Homunculus Studios and published by Click Team, this one is clearly inspired by Hollow Knight. You'll explore a vast, dreamlike, non-linear world while doing all the things that any good Metroidvania would ask of you. It released 2 years ago for PC and didn't find much of an audience, but the reviews I could find praised its deep combat system and enormous variety of magic and abilities, while also saying that it's pretty hard at the beginning and generally lasted a bit longer than it needed to. Those were pretty old reviews though, so check out the reviews for Switch as soon as they come out this week, just in case anything changed. At $19.99, Endless Memories is a fine way to wrap up the week. There's all kinds of stuff to consider this week, isn't there? I'd say the games topping my list are Guardian Tales, Wizorb, and Josh Journey, but to a lesser extent, Maze Blaze, Cosmo Players, Splatter, whatever it's called, not going there again, Proteus, Endless Memories, and of course, No Man's Sky. 9 out of the 17 games covered going on my list makes for a pretty solid week. But what about you? Let me know down in the comments, over on Twitter, or chat it up with your fellow citizens on the Nindie Nation Discord. Nindies Nite is shaping up nicely this week. At the time of recording, I'm not sure exactly what we'll be playing, but I'm hoping for Josh Journey and a couple of others. So let me know if there's something you really want to see, and come join us this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's hard to tell what's really going to stand out next week, as we've got a platformer with witches, a hack and slash with ninjas, and a nightmare-inducing adventure about a serial killer who targets pregnant women. But the following week, we get Them's Fightin' Herds, and I am far too excited for that one. So be sure to join us over the next few weeks, because we're all done for today. Thanks so much for watching, liking, and subscribing to Nindie Nation. If you happen to be a part of other indie communities, please help spread the gospel of Nindie, because it's the most impactful thing you can do to support the channel. Until next week, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 161, and remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.